you understand English perfectly, but completely freeze when it's time to actually speak.
Oh yeah, that is such a common feeling.
Right. I mean, seriously, I want you to picture it. You are in a meeting, or maybe, you are traveling and someone asks you a question.
And your brain just instantly translates it.
Exactly. You know exactly what they're asking.
Yeah.
You even know the grammar rules required to formulate the perfect response.
But then you hit that wall.
Yes. There's this moment, this agonizing, terrifying split second where you have to actually open your mouth and push the sounds out into the air.
Which is the hardest part.
It really is. And suddenly it's like, well, like your vocal cords belong to a stranger. You hesitate, you stumble, or maybe you just nod and say something incredibly short and safe.
Right, completely abandoning the articulate thought you had in your head.
It is incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, today we are going entirely into that exact phenomenon for this deep dive.
It's a fascinating topic, really.
It is. Our mission today is to unpack a highly specific, highly effective language learning practice session we uncovered.
Yeah, one that's designed specifically to bridge that agonizing gap between, passive listening and active, confident fluency.
Exactly. We are going to explore the underlying psychology of a method called shadowing and why it works so much better than traditional grammar study.
And we get to do that by looking at a great little story.
Yes. We are going to look at a surprisingly relatable, mildly dramatic workplace scenario between two coworkers, Ben and Amy, to see exactly how you can put this into action for yourself.
I love the Ben and Amy scenario. It's so practical.
Totally. So, okay, let's unpack this right away because the very first thing this practice method does is directly attack the way most of us were taught languages in school.
Oh, absolutely. It completely throws out the rule book.
And it throws it out entirely, right?
Yes, and for a very good reason, actually. The entire approach here is anchored in a profoundly different philosophy.
Which is what exactly?
Well, the idea is that you need to practice English the way your brain actually evolved to learn language.
Okay, so like naturally.
Right. Think about the sequence of how a human being acquires their first language. It is an unbreakable sequence. First, you listen.
Makes sense.
Then you repeat what you hear. Finally, you speak on your own. Notice what is glaringly absent from that sequence.
Grammar textbooks.
Exactly. Studying grammar rules. There is no point where a toddler sits down with a textbook to memorize subject-verb agreement before asking for a glass of milk.
That would be terrifying, honestly. A toddler with a textbook.
It would. But, when you get to a classroom as an adult, suddenly that natural sequence is entirely reversed.
Right. You are handed the mathematical formulas of language, like the verb conjugations, the tense alignments, and told to just, memorize them.
Yeah, but the human brain does not acquire natural speak patterns through abstract math.
So that freeze moment I mentioned earlier in the meeting.
Yeah, when you hit that freeze moment, you are experiencing a cognitive traffic jam. You are trying to consciously apply those abstract rules while simultaneously trying to operate the physical muscles of your mouth, tongue, and diaphragm.
Which is a lot to do all at once.
It is simply too much conscious cognitive load for anyone to handle in real time. Your brain needs muscle memory, not just textbook memory, to achieve natural fluency.
I feel like studying grammar rules to learn how to speak a language is basically like reading the instruction manual for a bicycle to learn how to ride it.
That is a perfect analogy.
Think about how absurd that would be. You could sit in your room for years memorizing the exact physics of the bicycle.
Right, you could study the gyroscopic effect of the spinning wheel.
Exactly. You could memorize the exact angle of the pedals. You could write a master's thesis on the friction of the rubber tires against the asphalt.
You'd get an A+ on a written test about bicycle riding.
For sure. But the very first time you actually swing your leg over the seat and try to push the pedal, what is going to happen?
You are going to fall over immediately.
Immediately.
And probably scrape your knee because your muscles have no idea what your brain knows.
The manual didn't teach your inner ear how to balance.
Right. To learn to ride the bike, you have to get on the bike, wobble around, and pedal. And if you want to speak English naturally, you have to actually use your voice.
You have to get the words out of your head and into your mouth.
Let's push that bicycle analogy even further because, it exposes a massive flaw in how you were probably taught.
Yeah, let's get into the linguistics of it.
Yeah.
The gap you were describing is the chasm between declarative knowledge, which is knowing the facts about the language, and procedural knowledge.
And procedural knowledge is the physical part, correct?
Exactly. It's the physical, unconscious act of actually producing the language. Traditional classrooms heavily favor declarative knowledge.
Right, you get rewarded for knowing the rule on a test.
Yes. But this practice session we're analyzing today flips that entirely.
Yeah.
It forces you into procedural practice from the very beginning. But, and this is where people usually stumble, I think, before it introduces the complex shadowing technique, it insists on a crucial first step.
Yes. You have to just listen.
However, it's the instruction on how you are supposed to listen that makes all the difference here, right?
It really does. Because before any of the speaking practice happens, you are given a very specific command.
It essentially says, first you will listen to a short English conversation. Just relax and try to understand the main idea. Don't worry about every single word.
Just relax.
Okay, see, I have a bone to pick with this. Just relax. It sounds so soothing, but for anyone who has ever tried to learn a language, telling them to relax is like almost insulting.
It feels paradoxical, doesn't it?
Totally is. We're conditioned to grip the steering wheel as tightly as possible. We want to catch every single syllable. If I don't know a word, my brain sets off an alarm bell. How is relaxing actually supposed to help me?
Well, it feels paradoxical because your default setting has been trained by years of test taking.
Yeah.
Let's analyze the mechanics of what happens when you don't relax.
Okay, walk me through it.
When you hear a stream of spoken language, your instinct is to attempt to translate it word for word in real time back into your native language.
Right. You hear the first word, you search your mental dictionary, you find the translation.
Exactly. You hear the second word, you do the same. But natural conversational speech moves vastly faster than conscious active translation.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can see where this is going.
So by the time you are finishing your internal translation of the third word, the person speaking is already on the eighth word.
You have created a massive cognitive bottleneck.
Precisely. You panic, you realize you are falling behind, you lose the thread of the entire conversation, and your comprehension completely collapses.
That is so relatable.
By explicitly instructing you to not worry about every single word, this method is giving you psychological permission to let go of perfectionism.
It is asking you to step back and look at the whole forest rather than inspecting the veins on every single leaf.
That's a great way to put it. So by abandoning the panic of translation, you actually clear the traffic jam in your head.
Okay, I buy that.
When you accept ambiguity, when you accept the fact that you will absolutely not understand everything being said, you actually increase your brain's capacity to grasp the natural flow.
The context, the main idea.
Right. In linguistics, we talk about lowering the affective filter.
The affective filter, what is that?
That is the emotional barrier of anxiety and self-doubt that literally blocks your brain from absorbing language.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you are tense and worried about missing a word, the filter is up and nothing gets in. If you relax, the filter drops and your brain starts passively absorbing the patterns.
That makes so much sense. Okay, to help drop that affective filter, this practice session doesn't throw you into some dense philosophical debate or a high-stakes legal negotiation.
No, it gives you a workplace drama.
Yes. And I am using the word drama a bit loosely here because it is wonderfully, almost painfully mundane.
It's very everyday.
Let me set the scene for you. We meet two coworkers, Ben and Amy. And Ben is visibly not doing well. Amy notices right away and says, "Hey, Ben, are you okay? You look a little tired today."
And Ben confesses his terrible situation.
He does. He says, "Honestly, I'm not great. My desk is right next to the printer, and it makes a loud noise all day. I can't focus."
And it turns out this isn't some new one-off issue.
No. This loud, obnoxious printer noise has been happening for 3 long weeks. 3 weeks of this clanking machinery.
That's awful.
And Ben is suffering. He says it gives him a headache every single afternoon. He is exhausted, he is in physical pain, and his focus is completely shot.
So Amy, being the observant and proactive coworker, pushes him.
She asks if he has talked to the manager about it. And Ben, bless his heart, is just sitting there taking the punishment.
What's fascinating here is why they use this specific scenario.
Yeah, it seems almost too simple, right? Why not use a scenario that teaches high-level business vocabulary?
Because the simplicity is the secret weapon. The specific choice of a mildly irritating, incredibly common workplace scenario is a deliberate pedagogical strategy.
Okay, how so?
If you are listening to a high-stakes negotiation about international trade tariffs, the cognitive load of just trying to understand the business concepts would completely overwhelm your ability to absorb the language.
Your brain would be fighting on 2 fronts.
Exactly. Decoding complex ideas and decoding a foreign language. But everyone, no matter where they are from, understands the irritation of a loud noise when you are trying to concentrate.
Right, everyone understands having a minor headache.
Because the context is so immediately visceral and understandable, your brain doesn't have to work hard to decipher the plot.
Instead, all of your cognitive energy can be entirely focused on the target language, the vocabulary, and the emotional resonance of the words.
It creates a safe, familiar, low-stakes sandbox for you to play in.
That makes a lot of sense. You don't have to learn the context, you just have to learn the words for it. I mean, who hasn't sat next to the noisy printer, or the buzzing fluorescent light, or the coworker who clicks their pen incessantly?
We've all been there.
We understand Ben's physical problem instantly. But as the conversation unfolds, we realize the physical problem, the printer, isn't actually the main obstacle here.
No, the real meat of this dialogue,
Yeah.
and where things get incredibly interesting from a psychological standpoint, is Ben's hesitation to actually fix the problem.
We dive straight into the psychological barriers.
Yeah.
Because when Amy asks him if he has talked to his manager about this 3-week-long headache machine, Ben gives an incredibly revealing answer.
He says, "Not yet. I don't want to cause any problems."
Oh, Ben.
This line is the psychological pivot of the entire narrative. Let's delve into Ben's excuse for suffering in silence, because it is something almost every single language learner does as well. Ben is experiencing physical pain, a literal headache, every afternoon. He is experiencing a loss of professional capability. He cannot focus. Yet he actively chooses to continue enduring this negative state because he fears that bringing it up will cause problems.
It speaks to a very deep-seated human psychology of avoidance.
Absolutely. We often perceive the potential friction of addressing an issue, like having an awkward conversation with a boss, as more threatening than the guaranteed daily suffering of the status quo.
Wow.
Ben is prioritizing the perceived harmony of the office, or perhaps just his own anxiety about confrontation over his own well-being and productivity.
The irony is just dripping from that sentence. I don't want to cause any problems.
It really is.
Ben is tying himself in knots trying to avoid causing problems for his manager, but the printer is currently causing massive problems for Ben. It is destroying his productivity.
As Amy correctly points out a moment later, it is hurting his work.
And if Ben's work is hurting, ultimately that is a problem for the manager anyway. He is trying to be the invisible, low-maintenance employee, but by staying silent, he is actually compromising his ability to do his job.
It is such a flawed, perfectly human contradiction.
It really is. And it is a contradiction that requires an intervention, which is precisely the role Amy plays.
She represents the voice of pragmatism in action. Let's analyze how she dismantles his avoidance.
Okay, let's hear it.
She says, "I understand, but you shouldn't have to put up with something that hurts your work. Just ask to move to a different seat. I'm sure your manager will understand."
I love how direct she is.
Notice the rhetorical structure there, though. She validates his feelings first, saying, "I understand," which lowers his defenses. But then she immediately challenges his flawed logic.
She frames the issue not as a personal whining complaint, but as a professional necessity.
Yes. The printer is hurting the work. Therefore, the logical solution is to change the environment. She removes the anxiety of a massive confrontation by making it a simple, practical request. Just ask to move.
And it works. Ben agrees. But the most crucial part of this entire exchange happens right at the end, after Ben commits to talking to the manager.
What happens?
Well, Amy wishes him luck, and Ben says, "I will. I feel better already just talking about it."
Ah, yes.
That line hit me hard, because think about his physical reality in that moment. He hasn't even moved his desk yet. The printer is presumably still clanking away right next to his ear.
Nothing in his physical environment has changed.
Nothing. But his emotional reality has completely shifted. Just the act of opening his mouth and verbalizing his frustration provided immediate relief.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this moment in the narrative perfectly mirrors the exact journey you, as a language learner, are going through.
That is a great point.
For someone learning English, keeping the language trapped inside your head, endlessly studying grammar rules, translating perfectly in your mind but never speaking out loud, is a source of immense anxiety and frustration.
It is a heavy cognitive burden.
Just like Ben feels better when he finally speaks his problem out loud to Amy, you will gain an incredible sense of relief and confidence when you finally start speaking the language out loud.
Breaking the seal of silence is inherently therapeutic.
Exactly. This dialogue is subtly promising you, "I know you are anxious about opening your mouth, but once you start actually moving your vocal cords and verbalizing the language, you are going to feel better. The anxiety will dissipate."
I really appreciate that connection. Verbalizing the problem cures the anxiety of the problem. speaking the language cures the anxiety of the language.
Beautifully said.
Now, to truly understand the depth of Ben's frustration and Amy's advice, we need to look at the specific tools this practice session gives you to express these feelings.
Right, the vocabulary.
We are moving into the vocabulary, and there are 3 specific targeted phrases here that are absolute gold for daily conversation. The first one is the absolute star of the show.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
The phrase is put up with. It's defined as to tolerate something or someone unpleasant, even when it is hard.
This is a phenomenal phrasal verb to master. Phrasal verbs are notoriously difficult because you cannot deduce their meaning just by looking at the individual words put, up, and with.
Right, if you translate those literally, it means nothing.
Exactly. You have to learn the entire chunk of language as a single conceptual unit. And the concept here is endurance in the face of adversity.
It implies a specific power dynamic, doesn't it?
It does. It implies you are enduring something you would strongly prefer not to endure, but you feel you have no immediate choice or control over the situation.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It is basically the ultimate phrase for suffering through the daily grind. Put up with. It just sounds exhausting.
It really does.
Think about how we use this in daily life. This practice session throws you right into a wide spectrum of examples to show just how versatile this chunk of language is.
So true.
First, you have the environmental examples. Things in your physical surroundings that are driving you crazy. Like, I can't put up with this loud music anymore.
That is exactly like Ben in the printer.
Right. You are subjected to a physical environment that is unpleasant. Then, you have the professional examples. She puts up with a lot of stress at work.
This moves the phrase from a physical annoyance to an emotional or psychological burden. You are tolerating a high-pressure environment.
But notice how it shifts when we move to navigating complex human relationships.
Yes, the relational application of put up with is where the nuance really shines in English.
Okay, give me an example.
Consider the examples. Thanks for putting up with him, and even more interestingly, thanks for putting up with me.
Oh, yeah.
This shifts the meaning significantly. When you say, thanks for putting up with me, you are employing a high degree of self-deprecating humor.
You are acknowledging that you yourself might be the difficult, annoying, or unpleasant thing that requires tolerance.
Exactly. It is a very advanced social maneuver to apologize for your own quirks by thanking someone else for their endurance. It acknowledges the emotional labor the other person is doing to maintain the relationship with you.
You might also hear variations like, I put up with everything, or I put up with too much.
Right, which express reaching a breaking point of that emotional labor. By exploring this wide spectrum, from loud music to stressful jobs to difficult personalities, you start to understand the full emotional gravity of the phrase, not just a sterile dictionary definition.
You can use it to complain about a lawnmower outside, or you can use it to deeply apologize to a friend for being cranky. The range is incredible.
It really is a versatile phrase.
Now, the second piece of target vocabulary is the exact phrase Ben used to justify his silence. Cause problems. It's defined as to make trouble or create a difficult situation for someone.
What is fascinating about this phrase is that it is inherently anticipatory. It's about predicting the future. Let's analyze the context provided.
Okay.
The first is a health consequence. Eating too much sugar can cause problems for your health. In this context, cause problems is a prediction of biological cause and effect. It is a warning.
The action of eating sugar leads directly to a negative outcome for the body.
Precisely. But the second context shifts entirely into the social realm, mirroring Ben's exact situation. He didn't want to cause problems, so he stayed quiet.
Ah, I see the difference.
Here, causing problems is not a biological certainty. It is purely a social anxiety. It is the fear that taking an action, like speaking up, will disrupt the delicate social equilibrium or create extra work or negative feelings for someone else.
It's the fear of being the squeaky wheel. You predict a negative social outcome, so you censor yourself.
Exactly.
It is a phrase deeply tied to conflict avoidance, and that leads us perfectly into the final vocabulary word, which represents the physical consequence of all this avoiding and putting up with things.
The headache.
The word is headache. Now, obviously, we know what a headache is. It's defined literally as a pain that you feel inside your head. That is Ben's reality every afternoon.
The printer pounds in his ears and his head physically hurts.
But the real lesson here is the dual meaning of this word.
The metaphorical extension of physical pain into emotional or logistical frustration is a cornerstone of conversational English.
Yeah, we do that a lot.
We do. A headache can also mean a situation that is very annoying or difficult to deal with. Consider the metaphorical example provided.
Right.
Fixing the computer was a real headache. It took all day.
Right. The computer didn't literally inflict physical trauma on the person's skull.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the cognitive frustration, the tediousness, the seemingly unsolvable nature of the computer issue induced a psychological state that so closely mimics the exhaustion and distress of a literal headache that we use the exact same word for it.
I love pointing this out because English frequently borrows physical ailments to describe emotional or logistical frustrations. Have you ever noticed that?
Oh, absolutely.
We say a difficult person is a pain in the neck. We talk about having heartache after a bad breakup. Or we say a complicated tax form is a massive headache.
It shows how visceral our language is.
When a situation is deeply annoying, we describe it as physically painful. So you have the story of Ben and Amy. You understand the psychology of avoidance. You have internalized the target phrases. Put up with, cause problems, and headache.
The foundation is set.
Now, we get to the core of why this practice method works. We move from the passive understanding phase, which is comfortable, into the active practice phases, which is where the actual growth happens.
The fun part.
Exactly. How do you train your brain to naturally use these words? We start with the mechanics of fluency, the listen and repeat drill.
This is where you actively build that procedural knowledge we discussed earlier. It is not just a lazy instruction to repeat this.
No, it's very specific.
The method utilizes a very specific, structured, two-speed approach to repetition. You are instructed. You will hear each sentence 2 times. The first time we will speak slowly. The second time we will speak at normal speed. After you hear the sentence, repeat it out loud.
Let's examine the mechanical utility of this dual speed methodology.
Sure. When you hear the sentence dictated slowly, for example, articulating every single distinct syllable of, honestly, I'm not, great. It allows your brain to map the individual phonetic sounds.
It gives your auditory processing center the critical time it needs to distinguish where one word ends and the next begins.
It is like looking at a photograph under a microscope.
You can see all the individual pixels of the sentence.
Exactly. But native speakers do not speak in isolated, magnified pixels. So the immediate repetition at normal speed is absolutely crucial.
Because normal speed is messy, right?
Very. Normal speed in English features what linguists call connected speech. Words blend together, consonants get dropped, vowels change shape.
Like I don't know becomes I don't know.
Exactly. Want to becomes wanna. The normal speed repetition forces your brain to link those individual sounds back together into the natural, fluid speech patterns of a native speaker.
So the slow speed builds your accuracy, and the normal speed builds your fluency.
Precisely. It is a carefully calibrated exercise in motor skill development for your mouth, tongue, and vocal cords.
It is literally training your muscles. You are at the gym for your mouth, but then the instructions push you even further. You are explicitly told, try to copy our pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation.
This is a huge step.
Now, I want to play the role of the frustrated, overwhelmed learner here for a second and push back on this.
Go for it.
Why on earth isn't just saying the words correctly enough? If I pronounce every single vowel and consonant perfectly, won't everyone understand me? Why do I need to worry about rhythm and intonation? It feels like you are forcing a music lesson on top of an already difficult language lesson. My brain is already full.
It is an incredibly common frustration and a very fair question. But answering it reveals the core mechanics of how the English language actually transmits meaning.
Okay, lay it on me.
English is fundamentally a stress-timed musical language. If you pronounce every single word with the exact same volume, the exact same length, and the exact same pitch, you will sound like an automated robot.
Like a GPS voice from the 90s?
Exactly. More importantly, native speakers will actually struggle to understand you, even if your individual pronunciation of the vowels and consonants is technically flawless.
Wait, really? Even if the pronunciation is perfect?
Yes, meaning in English is conveyed not just through the vocabulary, but through the melody of the sentence.
The melody.
Rhythm, which words are stressed, drawn out, and louder, versus which words are rushed over and swallowed, and intonation, the rise and fall of the pitch of your voice, tell the listener what is important.
Can you give me an example of how that melody changes the meaning?
Certainly. Let's take a simple fabricated sentence using basic vocabulary. I didn't say he stole the money.
Okay.
That sentence can have 7 completely different meanings depending entirely on which word receives the intonation stress.
Wait, 7?
7. If you emphasize the first word, I didn't say he stole the money, it means someone else said it.
Oh, wow.
If you emphasize the verb, I didn't say he stole the money, it implies you might have written it or implied it, but didn't speak it.
That's crazy.
If you emphasize the pronoun, I didn't say HE stole the money, it means you think someone else stole it.
This is blowing my mind a little bit.
Emphasizing rhythm and intonation is what prevents that robotic delivery and leads directly to the promise that the more you repeat, the more natural your English will sound. It is not an optional extra. The melody is literally part of the grammar.
Wow. The melody carries the meaning. If you miss the melody, you miss the message. But asking you to focus on pronunciation and speed and rhythm and intonation all at once, well, that is a massive cognitive load.
It's huge.
Which is probably why this practice session immediately follows that instruction with what I think is the most important liberating sentence in the entire thing. It provides the ultimate antidote to perfectionism.
Yes.
It says, don't worry about being perfect. Just speak clearly and with confidence. Don't worry about being perfect. Just speak.
That repetition of just speak is vital. The creators of this method recognize that the pursuit of perfection is the absolute enemy of fluency.
Because it freezes you up again.
Exactly. When you are overly focused on perfect pronunciation or perfect intonation, you revert back to that tight-gripped anxiety we discussed at the very beginning. You freeze up.
Right.
By explicitly instructing you not to worry about being perfect, they're resetting your goalpost. The ultimate goal is not to pass a flawless phonetics exam. The goal is to communicate a thought to another human being.
If you are listening to this right now, write this down. Confidence trumps perfection.
Always.
If you say a sentence with a slight accent, or you miss a subtle rhythm cue, but you say it loudly, clearly, and confidently, the listener will understand you and engage with you.
They absolutely will.
If you mumble a perfectly constructed, grammatically flawless sentence while staring at your shoes, communication fails. The mechanics of fluency require you to accept a certain level of messiness. You have to be willing to make mistakes out loud.
You do.
And this method reinforces this by making you repeat every single line of the Ben and Amy dialogue. You say it slow, you say it normal, you absorb the rhythm, but repeating sentences you've already heard is only the first layer of practice.
It's just the warm-up.
Right. Real conversations out in the wild aren't just echoing what someone else said. They require real-time answers. You don't know what the other person is going to say. And this leads us to the next phase, active recall and the fast track to fluency.
This is where we move from mimicking to generating. The practice transitions into a Q&A session, and it makes a very bold claim.
What's the claim?
It states, speaking practice is the fastest way to improve your fluency.
This raises an important question, though. Why is answering simple questions the fastest way?
Let's examine exactly how it tests comprehension and forces active recall to justify that claim. You are presented with a series of questions based on the dialogue you just heard, and the structure of these questions is highly intentional.
It is not a random quiz.
No, it is a carefully designed escalation of cognitive demand.
Yes, let's walk through this drill because you can actually see the difficulty ramping up step by step, forcing your brain to work harder. It starts incredibly simply. You hear the first line of the story, "Hey Ben, are you okay? You look a little tired today."
And then you are asked a question.
Right. Is Ben happy today? The answer is obvious. No, he isn't. He isn't happy today. This is just establishing a baseline. You heard a negative premise, you produce a negative answer, it's a warm-up.
But then it gets more specific.
Exactly. It reviews the part about the printer and asks, is Ben's desk next to the window? Now, you have to remember a specific detail and correct a false premise.
No, it isn't. His desk is right next to the printer.
Your brain is working a little harder now to retrieve the facts and structure the sentence.
I want you to consider why answering these seemingly simple questions is considered the fastest way to improve fluency. Why not just read the answers?
Yeah, why not?
The secret lies in the mechanics of real-time retrieval. When you are asked, "Where is Ben's desk?" you cannot simply repeat a phrase you just heard a second ago.
You have to pull it from memory.
You have to dive into your short-term memory, extract the abstract concept, the location next to the printer, and then instantly synthesize the correct English vocabulary and grammatical structure to communicate that concept aloud.
That sounds hard.
It perfectly mimics the exact pressure of a real spontaneous chat. You are not reading from a script anymore. You are actively constructing meaning under time pressure.
And it escalates even further by forcing you to use the complex target vocabulary we discussed earlier. You are asked, did Ben talk to his manager about the problem? You answer, no.
And then comes the crucial follow-up question.
Why didn't Ben talk to his manager? Now, you have to produce that core phrase completely from memory because he doesn't want to cause any problems.
You aren't just reciting a definition on a flashcard anymore.
No. You are deploying the phrase in its proper narrative and grammatical context. And throughout this entire section, you are given the same vital instructions over and over. Listen carefully and try to answer out loud before I give the correct answer. And don't be shy.
Those instructions are the linchpin of the entire exercise.
Oh,
Answer out loud before I give the correct answer. This is the pure essence of active recall.
right.
If you simply listen to the question, think of the answer silently in your head, and wait for the recording to confirm it, you have entirely short-circuited the learning process.
Wow, really?
Yes. Thinking the words and physically speaking the words use entirely different neural pathways in your brain. The instruction to answer out loud forces you to commit. It forces the physical articulation.
And the reminder, don't be shy, circles back to that psychological barrier.
The effective filter, yes. In this practice scenario, you are likely sitting alone in a room speaking to a video. There is literally no one there to judge you.
Yet you still feel awkward.
The creators anticipate that you will still feel shy. It highlights just how deeply ingrained the fear of speaking is. The constant reminders demand physical participation because that physical action is the only way to build the procedural memory required for fluency.
You cannot learn to swim by watching a video of a pool. You have to get in the water and thrash your arms around. Moving your mouth to say the answer out loud before the video does is jumping into the water.
I love that analogy.
Okay, so look at the progression here. You have listened to the story, you have internalized the vocabulary put up with cause problems. You have repeated the sentences at slow and normal speeds to learn the rhythm.
You have answered spontaneous questions out loud to practice active recall.
You have climbed the mountain step by step. And now you arrive at the absolute pinnacle. We reach the ultimate exercise that this entire session has been building toward: shadowing.
Shadowing is a sophisticated, highly effective technique primarily utilized by simultaneous interpreters, the people translating live at the UN, and advanced language learners.
What is brilliant here is how this method distills a complex professional technique into a highly accessible exercise for you. Let's deconstruct exactly what the shadowing technique is based on the precise instructions provided.
Let's do it.
It breaks it down very clearly for you. It says, now let's practice shadowing. You'll hear one speaker's line. Listen carefully, then say it out loud. After that, read the other speaker's line yourself. You'll take turns speaking both parts of the conversation.
It is literal role-playing.
You aren't just repeating anymore. You hear Amy say, "Hey, Ben, are you okay?" And you repeat Amy. But then the training wheels come off. It is your turn to be Ben.
You step right into his shoes.
You read Ben's line out loud. "Honestly, I'm not great. My desk is right next to the printer." You are actively participating in a simulated two-way conversation.
The cognitive load of this task is remarkably high, but in a very targeted, useful way. Let's analyze your mental process during shadowing.
Okay, what's happening in my brain?
First, you are maintaining the pace of the audio. The conversation is flowing at normal speed. You have to listen to Amy's input, process its meaning instantly, and then, without hesitation, deliver your reply as Ben.
This simulates the most terrifying aspect of a real conversation: the lack of time to prepare your response.
However, the brilliance of shadowing is that while it simulates the time pressure of a real conversation, it completely removes the burden of vocabulary and grammar generation.
Because the words are right there.
The words are provided for you on the screen to read. Therefore, your brain can dedicate 100% of its processing power to the physical delivery, the pronunciation, the rhythm, the intonation, and the emotional expression of the words.
You are practicing the act of fluent speaking without the stress of inventing the content.
Exactly.
It is exactly like singing along to your favorite song in the car. Think about how good you sound when you are belting out a tune with the radio. You don't have to write the lyrics, you don't have to compose the melody, and you don't have to keep the beat.
You just get to perform it.
And by performing it over and over, you learn how to manipulate your voice to match the professional artist. You are stepping into Ben's shoes and feeling what it is physically like to naturally express frustration in English.
But jumping into a full-speed role play might be intense, so they offer a vital safety valve.
Right, you can customize the practice.
Yes, you are explicitly told, if it's too fast, just pause or slow down the video. This is a crucial element of managing your own cognitive load.
So you don't just give up.
It ensures that you are continually challenged, but not entirely overwhelmed. If the mental demand exceeds your capacity, learning stops and frustration takes over.
So what does this all mean? By giving you permission to pause, you regain control over the pace.
You can stop, process the tricky phonetics of a difficult phrase like how much longer I can put up with it, practice it in isolation a few times, and then resume the flow of the conversation. It empowers you to regulate your own training intensity.
So let's step back. What does this all mean for you? You have done all these drills, you have role-played as Ben complaining about his printer, you have shadowed Amy giving practical advice. What is the ultimate benefit of putting yourself through this cognitive workout?
They give you the payoff right there.
It says shadowing helps you speak more clearly, naturally, and with confidence. Clearly, naturally, and with confidence. That is the holy trinity of language learning.
It truly is.
That is the cure for the freeze response we talked about at the very beginning. But there is a catch, and it's revealed in the final instructions. This isn't a magic pill that works after one dose.
No, it requires a profound commitment to repetition. The final instruction is uncompromising. Keep watching this video every day for 1 week. The more you repeat, the more fluent you will become.
Every day for a week.
This speaks to the harsh neurological reality of skill acquisition. True fluency. The ability to deploy a complex phrase like, I don't want to cause any problems spontaneously, correctly, and with the right intonation, is not a one-and-done event.
It is never achieved by understanding the concept just once.
It is the result of daily targeted repetition until the linguistic pattern becomes deeply embedded muscle memory. The neural pathways in your brain required to articulate those specific sounds in that specific order must be reinforced through repeated firing.
It is entirely honest with you. The technique absolutely works, but the mechanism of its success is relentless consistency over time.
You have to build the literal roads in your brain.
And you only build them by driving a steamroller over the exact same path again and again, every day for a week. So let's bring this all together. We have gone on quite a journey today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We started by confronting that awful, paralyzing feeling of understanding English perfectly, but freezing when it's time to speak. We learned that the cure isn't stuffing more grammar rules into your head, it is physical, procedural practice.
We dove into the surprisingly compelling drama of Ben's noisy printer and his 3-week headache.
And we saw how deeply relatable, everyday scenarios create the absolute best, low-stress environment for learning. We unpack the psychological weight of phrases like put up with and cause problems, realizing that language is often just a tool for navigating human avoidance and frustration.
We learned why rhythm and melody matter just as much as pronunciation.
And how changing the stress changes the entire meaning of a sentence. We saw how answering simple questions out loud forces your brain to synthesize language on the spot.
And finally, we arrived at shadowing.
The ultimate technique of listening, pausing, and role-playing the other half of a conversation to build real conversational confidence without the pressure of inventing the words. I want to encourage you to take this shadowing technique and apply it to your own learning.
Even if you are just practicing how to respectfully complain about a headache-inducing printer.
Exactly. The physical act of speaking aloud with the recording will fundamentally change the way your brain processes the language.
The underlying mechanism we have explored today leaves us with a truly fascinating concept to consider. This method demonstrates that repeatedly stepping into someone else's shoes, literally shadowing Ben or Amy's voice, matching their rhythm, their tone, their exact phrasing, physically rewires your brain for fluency.
It bridges the chasm between passive knowledge and active performance.
It proves that emulation is the pathway to mastery, which leads to a compelling, broader question for you to mull over.
I love a good question.
If shadowing a simple, mundane conversation about a noisy office printer can fundamentally break down the barrier between knowing a language and actually speaking it, what other difficult, seemingly insurmountable skills in your life could you master simply by finding an expert and meticulously shadowing their every move?
Exactly. Because when that moment comes and you are in that meeting and someone asks you a question, you don't want to be the person desperately flipping through the instruction manual of the bicycle in your head. You want to be the person already on the seat, already pedaling away, feeling the wind, speaking clearly, naturally, and with complete confidence.